This week on Healthy Living, we take a close look at the well-being of people with albinism in Africa. An organization in Zimbabwe steps in to fight skin cancer among people with albinism. And we uncover the untold stories of mothers defying societal norms while raising children with cerebral palsy. Plus, a newly approved malaria vaccine could save millions of lives. We'll have these stories and more in this edition of Healthy Living. Hello and welcome to another episode of Healthy Living. I'm Lenore Moudou. Have people ever been uncomfortable around you or stared at you because of the way you look? For many people with albinism, the answer is yes. Albinism affects people worldwide, regardless of race, ethnicity, or gender. It is a genetic disorder where the body produces little or no melanin, which is responsible for pigmentation. The amount or type of melanin in a person determines the color of the skin, hair, and eyes. Melanin also plays a role in the development and function of the eyes. As a result, people with albinism experience unique challenges with their vision and eyes, including involuntary rapid eye movements and extreme sensitivity to light. They also face other health issues such as a high risk of sunburn or developing skin cancer. Let's go to Zimbabwe, where a charity group is raising funds for a basic product that can be critical for people living with albinism: sunscreen. The group, called the Noble Hands of Zimbabwe, released a report in September saying 1 in 3 people with albinism in Zimbabwe die of skin cancer before the age of 40, including children as young as 8. Columbus Mavunga has more from Harare, Zimbabwe.
A September report by the charity organization the Noble Hands Zimbabwe says 1 in 3 people living with albinism in Zimbabwe die before they reach 40 due to skin cancer. Now Marvelous Chuma, a musician with albinism, is helping the non-profit group raise funds for a simple but life-saving resource: sunscreen.
Because
many people with albinism stay in the rural areas, and most of them spend the better part of the day in the sun working in the fields. That exposes their skin and it gets damaged. They don't have the chemicals to tame the heat so that the skin is not burnt off.
Loveness Mainato is a mother of 4, 2 of them living with albinism.
So the sunscreen lotions are expensive, the cheapest tube being 15 US per 200 milliliter tube. So it has been quite difficult to have access to sunscreen lotions.
Mainato hopes things will improve now that the government-funded University of Zimbabwe is manufacturing sunscreen lotions. Joey Chifamba is a nano-pharmaceutical scientist and professor at the University of Zimbabwe. He says their lotion will protect people and cost less.
In Zimbabwe, a typical sunscreen, for example, the leading brands, I can't mention the names, but they cost between 10 and 20 US dollars per bottle. But our unit of Solagard is just going for about 5 to 6 US dollars.
According to the World Health Organization, albinism is a hereditary condition in which little or no melanin is produced, causing a lack of pigmentation in the skin, eyes, and hair. Lack of pigmentation, which protects the skin from radiation from the sun, can leave one vulnerable to skin cancer, says the UN Health Agency. Dr. Trevor Kanyowa of the WHO in Zimbabwe says they should limit their exposure to the sun and get professional care.
And they are also encouraged to have a look at themselves, to make regular self-assessments of their skin. Are they developing any unhealthy patches or lumps, something that may worry them?
Early detection allows professionals to better treat diseases such as skin cancer, says the WHO, resulting in fewer deaths.
People with albinism are often stigmatized. In some communities, their lives are in danger due to certain myths and misconceptions. For more insight and what can be done for the rights and well-being of albinos, our correspondent Cathy Short in Zambia spoke with Muluka Ann Miti Drummond, UN independent expert on the enjoyment of human rights by persons with albinism.
I think we first have to highlight that the African Union have actually given some thought to this, and in 2021 they adopted a plan of action for the eradication of attacks against persons with albinism. This plan of action is quite holistic. It covers issues such as health, education, attacks against persons with albinism, social protection measures, and I think it is important for all countries to adopt, to translate this action plan into what we call national action plans. There are lots of myths, wrong beliefs about albinism, and it's important for people to understand that persons with albinism are human beings just like anyone else. The only difference is that they have this condition, which means they've got they lack melanin pigmentation. So we need to study it in schools, understanding what is genetics. And then the other thing that I'll say is like positive portrayals. We need to have people with albinism in the media, on the TV, and have some positive portrayals of persons with albinism. So in relation to attacks, there needs to be investigations, there needs to be arrests, there needs to be measures put in place even before the point of attacks. So there are a lot of measures that the authorities can take, and I would recommend to all governments in Africa, including Zambia, to adopt a national action plan and to look at the plan of action. Thinking about mothers of children with albinism, benefit packages, social protections for women in vulnerable situations or children with disabilities or children in vulnerable situations, but they don't always include children with albinism. So we need to include children with albinism. Policies around sunscreen. It's very essential. We take things for granted, but sunscreen for persons with albinism is essential. It's actually a matter of life and death, and governments need to think about provision of sunscreen to persons with albinism free of charge for those who cannot afford it.
Salif Keita is one of the most iconic names in African pop music. The award-winning musician and humanitarian was born in Mali with albinism. He uses his voice and his platform, the Salif Keita Global Foundation, to advocate and raise awareness about the needs and well-being of people with albinism in Mali and beyond. We revisit our past conversation with the iconic singer who shared his experience of growing up with albinism.
During my childhood, I was the only albino in my village of Joniba, and that caused me a lot of problems because I'm white and the others are black. People noticed me because I was the only albino in the village and the region surrounding it too. On the other hand, I'm proud to be an albino because if I was not albino, I would not be here talking to you today. It allowed me to be a musician. It allowed me to fall into music by chance and make a career of it. There are many human sacrifices perpetrated on albinos, and the reason behind it is ignorance. It's cultural. People have been doing this for centuries. They think they can capture the powers of albinos by killing them, collecting their hair, selling their body parts as they would so with animals. And we are looking for a way to fight that. But it's cultural. Only one person cannot change people's mind and raise awareness. Africa alone cannot do that either. Africa needs help from the Western countries who understand the problems of albinism. Albinism is a lack of melanin, it's a problem of pigmentation, but not all Africans know that it is a problem of pigmentation. So, albinos are stigmatized, sacrificed because of traditional beliefs. We albinos, we are humans. We are not different. Like everyone else, we need love and help.
World Cerebral Palsy Day is observed on October 6th and aims to raise awareness about and acceptance of the condition. In developing countries like Nigeria, caregivers and parents of children with cerebral palsy struggle to support the children and deal with the stigma of the disorder. Gibson Emeka visits a mother in Abuja who has left everything to care for her son. Narrated by Salem Solomon.
When Zainab Obamahai's son Max was diagnosed with cerebral palsy 2 months after his birth, she left her job as a hairstylist to be his full-time caregiver.
He will cry for 48 hours non-stop. The mental stress is there. And it's like everyday thing. Because I wake up every morning, I see him. I know the things that he's supposed to be doing by now, and he can't do them.
Cerebral palsy is a group of disorders that affect a person's movement, posture, and balance. Obamahai's husband, Julius Obamahai, has been supportive. He says he handles the physiotherapy sessions at home to cut the financial burdens.
Whenever I'm at home, I try my best to assist, bathe him, feed him. Trust me, feeding a special needs child is not for the faint-hearted.
Cerebral palsy is the most common cause of physical disability in children around the world, according to research by the National Institutes of Health. There are about 2 to 3 cases of every 1,000 births, according to the Centers for Disease Control. And women bear the brunt of caring for these children.
The gender issues around that is that in many families today, there is an abdication of responsibility of raising children because people believe it is the sole responsibilities of a mother.
Habefan Dori Gustav, a clinical psychologist based in Abuja, Nigeria, says the pressure on these mothers can cause trauma and lead to isolation.
They move their focus from themselves to these children, and at the same time it could even lead them into depression. I've worked with people who for years they had their children under lock and key just because they don't want people to see these children.
Obamahai launched a non-profit in 2021 to support children with special needs and mothers like herself. But it appears more is needed to address the problem. Psychological experts in Nigeria are urging the government to invest more in raising awareness and support.
The World Health Organization approved a second malaria vaccine. It's hoped the new drug will quickly be rolled out in countries across Africa in the coming month. Henry Ridgewell reports from London.
A new malaria vaccine known as R21 was developed by Britain's Oxford University along with the Serum Institute of India. It is already in use in Ghana and Burkina Faso. The World Health Organization approved the drug Monday, paving the way for its wider rollout.
In areas with seasonal transmission, it reduced symptomatic cases of malaria by 75% in the 12 months following a 3-dose series of the vaccine. A 4th dose given a year after the third was shown to maintain protection.
The WHO approved the first ever malaria vaccine in 2021, known as RTSS.
As a malaria researcher, I used to dream of the day when we would have a safe and effective vaccine against malaria. Now we have two.
The WHO says there is little difference in effectiveness between the two vaccines, but the new R21 vaccine is cheaper to make at around $2 to $4 a dose, with each patient needing 4 doses, about half the price of RTSS. The new vaccine can also be made in much greater volumes. The Serum Institute of India is already in line to make 100 million doses a year, with plans to double that output. Experts warn that it won't beat malaria on its own, and that other preventative measures are needed, including mosquito nets.
Thanks for watching Healthy Living. For the latest news and coverage, stay connected to Voice of America at voaafrica.com. You can follow me on X at Linoch Mudu. That's our show for today. Until next time, stay well and strive to make every day a healthy day.